It's
Yeah,
unfortunate that four of the young men were students at Digital Pioneers Academy, but it's the neighborhoods that they have to go back and live in. You know,
sure.
uh, uh, you look at Twitter a couple of weeks ago. The young lady, I believe, young lady was killed. She was pregnant. Young people on Minnesota Avenue in the middle of the day with ARs and assault pistols and rifles. They're just shooting in the middle of the day, like nothing's going on. This is a systemic problem that we have in our city.
Live from the streets of Washington, D.C., on the corner where sports and culture meets hip-hop. Sharing stories of the DMV and spitting fire for the whole damn country. This is First and Told with Chad Ricardo and Darrell Bucknight.
What up, my people, and welcome back to another episode of First and Told, the podcast. He is Darrell Bucknight. I am Chad Ricardo. D, it's summertime. We got fall sports, though, right around the corner. It's heating up on the gridiron. I am excited.
I'm excited too, and it's funny how fast summer is going. But I think it's also fun and exciting for us to know that fall sports are starting. They're gonna hit the ground running. They already are with summer practices, and we're gonna have another year of really really good sports in the DMV.
That's right. We've got a ton, obviously, to talk about with the Commanders. New ownership, Josh Harrison, the building at that level. The Maryland Terrapins, the football team, Coach Locks. He's got that squad. He said recently at Big Ten Media Day that their goal is not just to compete, but to win the Big Ten. We'll see how much they can do. Of course, at the high school level, one of my personal favorites, it's gearing up. WCAC, can St. John's three-peat? Can QO three-peat as well? In the DC and Maryland reigns, and what's going to happen in Virginia is Freedom Woodbridge, now the big dog of all of the region. So that's to get into. But before we talk another down of football, I want to go back to your home, of course, that being Gonzaga College High School, where you are a proud alum, where now nearly a month ago we lost a truly great man in Joe Rada.
He was truly, truly a great man. And as you said, Chad, it was about a month ago that we all woke up to the shocking news of the passing of Coach Joe Rada. He was at Gonzaga. He's an alum of the school. He was at the school professionally for about 3 decades. He started off as a coach. He was a longtime football coach. And then he was a longtime athletic director of the school. And, this is our first time having a show since he passed away. And I think so many people have said so many different things about him, and it's hard to kind of capture him without stepping on everybody else's toes, because everything that's been said has been 100% true and right and genuine. But personally, I owe a lot to Joe Rada, because when I was a freshman at Gonzaga in 2011, I came in knowing what I wanted to do professionally. I wanted to be a sports personality. I wanted to write. I wanted to broadcast and be on air. And Joe Rada was one of the first people in the athletic department that I met, but he was a guy who led one of the top athletic programs in the country, and he gave me the reins to do really anything I asked or wanted from him. Whether I wanted to go and shoot a practice, or go in the locker room, or go get sideline passes, or stay on the field for one of the football games, a basketball game, a lacrosse soccer game, whatever it was, he always encouraged me. He let me do things, but he encouraged me to do what I wanted to do, and he inspired me to pursue this career. The last time I saw him was in October of 2021. Gonzaga celebrated its bicentennial, its 200-year anniversary, and Coach Rada and his wife Trish, and myself and my mom, the four of us, we had this conversation, and he was just remarking on how proud he was to see an alum, go out and do big things outside of the school. And he, even at that moment, almost 2 years ago, he just kept encouraging me and expressed how proud he was of me and what I've been able to accomplish in my career. And that's how he was with everybody, literally, whether in the athletic department, player, coach, student, administrator, whomever. Always had a smile on his face, always happy, always genuine. And it's a big loss for the Gonzaga community, for the whole WCAC and all of DMV sports, because everybody loved him. So Joe Rada, it's he'll always be remembered, and we're glad that he provided us with so many memories and how good he was as a person.
Absolutely, and for me, obviously, there is not any more that I have to be able to add on top of that. You, someone who knew him very well, I was shocked as I had just recently seen him at the Caleb Williams event, and it was truly just a testament to how all of this can be taken away at any moment, and a reminder to truly value life. In my time covering DC, DMV, student athletes and athletics, in my dealings with Joe Rada, he was an outstanding man. He was a fine man. He always treated me with respect. He always greeted me with kindness, and I will forever be appreciative of him, and all of my thoughts and prayers are still with the entire Rada family.
Always, definitely.
Yeah.
So now that we've talked about some of the professional sports and some of the fall season and sports going on in the DMV, let's pivot a little bit to the Commanders and
Commanders!
the Commanders. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders.
I get so excited talking about the Commanders. Go
We-
home team.
The home team, the only home team, I should
Yeah, man.
say. Sorry, Baltimore Ravens fans. So they're obviously in training camp right now. The first day of training camp was just 2 days ago as of the recording of this episode. A lot of storylines. I think the biggest, perhaps, over the course of the past week or two has been Josh Harris.
Sure.
The new owner coming in, having been approved, taking over for Dan Snyder after 24 years of whatever you want to insert on this line here. What in your opinion, because you're connected, you're close, what
Yeah.
do you think fans should look forward to, not only with Harris, but with the team as we start training camp and move on to the preseason?
Yeah, man. Look, bro. On Fox 5, I said that this was the 24-year nightmare that we were waking up from, which was the previous regime. But even more than that, D, I don't know that any of us ever could have imagined just the spirit that the Josh Harris group taking over was going to inject into the life of Washington Commanders players, the fans, and the entire damn DMV community, D. Like, whether you're looking on Twitter, whether you're looking at the pep rally that was held, whether you're looking at fans basically celebrating in the streets, like, this is... It is almost as though the roof has been taken off, that the drape, the wet blanket has been pulled off, and this is Commanders fans in the community coming back to a proud franchise that they have absolutely loved, and it's almost as if they're allowed to love them again. I know that you are someone who grew up loving this team. Your feelings on it?
I feel the same way, and I think a lot of people have compared this to, and to me it's not the same, but a lot of people have compared it to winning a Super Bowl. And obviously they're two different things, but the feeling is similar. The day that Josh Harris was voted in as owner, it felt there were many restaurants and bars in DC that had parties for him to celebrate this incoming ownership group. And personally as a fan, I think I acknowledge that it'll take time. Things are not going to change overnight, but there's been a palpable buzz among the fan base at training camp, on social media, even with the players at training camp. You can feel an energy that hasn't been there the past however many years.
Sure.
Maybe not in 11 years since RG3 was a rookie and he took over the city during that incredible run in 2012. But I think that personally, I'm excited. I think the Harris group, and there's a focus on group because there are so many locals, there are so many DMV natives who are a part of this, and of course Magic Johnson, who everybody is excited for. I think this group is really going to take the culture of the team to the next level, and I think that's what the team needs, that's what the organization needs, and that's what the whole DMV needs as we try to revive this football program to what it once was in the 80s and early 90s.
Yeah, listen, I'm going to double down on that. I'm going to double down by sharing something with you that in our years of our friendship, I don't know that I've ever told you before, D.
Uh-oh. I don't know if I want to hear this.
And that is this. That is that although my personal allegiance may be to another football team, what you may not know is that I grew up in a Washington Commanders house. At that point, of course, the Washington Redskins. I grew up in a Redskins home. My dad, my father, was a lifelong Washington football fan. He loved that team. My dad cried tears of joy when Doug Williams won a Super Bowl. Grown man cried tears of joy because of not only obviously the Washington team winning, but also with it being Doug Williams at the quarterback of that franchise. I also in later years saw my dad be so upset, so disappointed by the Washington football team that he left that team and swore his allegiance to the Oakland Raiders because he told me that he could not root for that franchise anymore.
Mm.
I think that there are a lot of fans who have been in this region, in this area, who felt the same way, both with the highs and the lows. And so now it is a blessing for them to be able to start to come back home. And you spoke to it with Magic Johnson being in the mix with this, with everything that he's going to mean to every one of those Commanders players every time that they see him, because D, he represents more than just a minority owner. He represents a former high-level professional athlete who established a majorly successful life after the game. And to the fans, he is more than just a minority owner. He is a man who cares about the community, who cares about the upliftment of the community, and cares about giving back to that community, a community that is in dire need of a little bit of hope. And I think that Magic Johnson is going to provide all of that so all of the Commanders fans can come on back home.
Truly, and I think we've started to see that already, and I think it'll be good for the city, and maybe you can follow the lead of some of the fans who are coming back home and kind of recapture your childhood roots, and
Hey,
stop rooting for the team that you root for, which says a lot about you as a person. But
I'm a home team guy. Go Commanders.
yeah, sure. Okay.
Speaking of which, obviously we got a ton of exciting players out there. Everybody wants to talk about Sam Howell, obviously. Chase Young coming back into the fray as well. I wonder, who are you most excited to see here? Who's going to help this team be successful and put W's not only on the helmet, but in the win and loss columns?
You know what? I have one player and I have one coach.
Gotcha.
My player is Brian Robinson Jr.
Yep.
He, during his media availability just earlier this morning, said that he never felt like Brian Robinson last year after that horrific incident in D.C. where he was shot twice, and he limped his way through the season. That's what he said, and he never truly felt like himself. He said this offseason, it's a night and day difference, and I'm excited to see who the Commanders truly have in Brian Robinson, the guy who they drafted out of Alabama last year, to see who they truly took as that running back, hopefully for the future and for many years to come. I'm really excited for, and I know you have something to say, I'm really excited for Eric Bieniemy. I think he's a guy who's been needed for this team for many years. Somebody who's who's holding the players accountable, yelling at players, maybe dropping a couple not so nice words at them here and there. But that's what we've needed, and I think it's something that it implores discipline. He's been able to implement his style, and I think he's being hard on players who need to be coached hard, who have the ability to be coached hard. Guys who went to Ohio State and Alabama, they're used to being coached hard, and I don't know if we've had that the past few years. I think Bieniemy, even if it doesn't show up in the box score, which hopefully it does, he will be able to drive them personally and professionally to be better than who they were last year and in the previous years of their careers.
I definitely agree with that. Especially excited to see what Coach Eric Bieniemy can do. Congratulations to him with having a role that is going to allow him a little more responsibility so that he can shut up the naysayers as well. However, I'm going to go with a couple of hometown kids to start my soliloquy because you know me, I'm a hometown kind of guy. Obviously, this conversation begins with Chase Young. Now, over a year removed from the knee injury that kept him out of a majority of last season and slowed him for the rest of it. How is Chase Young going to come back? Especially, he's got some motivation as well, a contract year for him. I believe that he's going to have a huge year and hopefully in the process be able to also shut up some of these other naysayers of who they think that he is off of the field, because I can tell you Chase Young is an outstanding young man, someone of high character who I also believe is going to have a big year. To hurry this along, also obviously Jaret Patterson, someone that we have had as a special guest on our show, another tremendous young man. You talked about that running back room. The running back room is stacked, and it is going to be challenging for Jaret Patterson, but one of the things that I know about him is that he's never afraid of any challenge, and when given his opportunity, he is going to take advantage of it. So shout out to Jaret Patterson. I wish well for him. And finally, from the local young men perspective, how about my main man Ray Boone? Ray Boone, an undrafted free agent from PG County, played his football there at Rose, and then went on to play at the HBCU as well. An outstanding story, one of the most athletically gifted young men that I ever covered in the high school game. I wish him well here. Hope that he has a chance to make the all 54, and if not there, that he can pick up a practice spot. But D, all of that said, I'm going with Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson. Now, Terry McLaurin, you're going to have to double team him. Going to have to triple team him. You might have to put your whole starting four secondary on Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson is going to have a lot of man-to-man coverage with the backside cornerback, whether it's Jacoby Brissett or Sam Howell. Can you get this man the ball? Get him the ball, D. Jahan Dotson is going to have a huge year, and he is going to be a big part of the success of this Commanders team.
You sound like you're rooting for the Commanders. I agree with you, but you really sound like you do, and I appreciate it. I think our listeners appreciate that too.
You better believe it. Go home team. That's what I always say. Coming up, we've got a major interview with you, alum and former head coach of the Carroll Lions, my dear friend. You know him a little bit as well. Coach Rob Harris will join us next on the First and Told podcast. First and Told. First and Told, the podcast, and we are back. Darrell, look, man, special guests, big guest in the building. Football season right around the corner. We are honored today to have my dear friend, your dear friend, joining the podcast. Tell me about him.
Huge guest, obviously. We're honored to have Mr. Rob Harris on the First and Told podcast. For a little bit of background, for those who don't know Coach Harris, he took over the reins of his alma mater football team, Archbishop Carroll, 8 years ago, and built the once dominant high school program of the 1980s and early 90s back to prominence, going 23-4 over his final 2 seasons with the Lions and getting a record of 42-38 overall during his tenure. He graduated top players and students in the classroom and molded young men on the field. Now Coach Harris is taking on a new task where he will head the Digital Pioneers Academy football program and become the charter school's new athletic director starting this fall. And he will lead the team's newly formed football program. So he does a lot. He did a lot at Carroll. He did a lot before that. Now he's doing a lot at Digital Pioneers, and we're happy to have Coach Rob Harris on our show today. Coach Harris, thank you. Thank you for joining.
Coach Harris in the building.
Yes, sir. Thank you, guys. You guys are some of the top guys in the business, and I just appreciate you guys thinking about little old me.
Hey, Coach, did you hear that intro, brother? I mean, look, man, that is why we keep Darrell Durrell around here. Like that was an extensive intro that he gave you there.
Amen. I appreciate it.
That's
of course. Chad, we usually do this. We do this a lot, and we bring in these guests, and I think one of the most important things that we want to talk to Coach Harris about is, as I just mentioned in the intro, obviously, Coach Harris, you graduated from Carroll, you went back 8 years ago to lead their football program, and now, obviously, we just talked about your jump to Digital Pioneers. For those who don't know, DPA is in Southeast DC. It's a charter school. It's kind of a startup in terms of its athletic program. Doesn't have a football team. Coach Harris, you will be the one who will start that football program, who will lead those young men coming this fall. And you know, you're no stranger to coaching and to leading, but this is a new opportunity in several ways. What have you learned from your time at Carroll and before that, and your other stops, that makes you believe you're the right man for this job right here at DPA?
Well, it's been that way. I mean, it seems like every job that I've almost ever taken was a startup in a sense. 8 years at Saratsville prior to Carroll.
Wow.
One playoff appearance by Tom Green in the school's history before I took the job, and then we had 3 out of 4 years where we made the playoffs. Should have been 4 out of 4, but we also had 2 regional championships that were won. So we put banners in the building. So it's never been a thing for me where I've been afraid to take a job that some might find difficult, but I always believe that I'm never going to leave it the way I found it.
Yeah.
And so that gave me the strength and the courage to even go back to my alma mater after 30 plus years of absence of championships. And Chad will tell you, I told him some years ago it was going to be a process, and we got it done. And so now it's an opportunity for me to do the same thing for other programs as the athletic director, to kind of lead some coaches. And I think I'm putting together some big names. I'm looking for some folks to come along and do some things in other sports. So it gives me an opportunity. I was the AD at Carroll for 2 years, and then the last 4 years I was the assistant AD to Brian Ellaby. And so now it just gives me an opportunity to build an entire program.
Coach, just a quick question, follow up to that. Building a football team is far different than building a basketball team, in which you need, probably can get it done with 8, 9, 10 players. Football team, you need an entire program. When will you all take the field, and how long is this going to take?
So we're going to play 5 games this year. We have 1 scrimmage, possibly 2. And so we're in our probationary period for the public charter school league with both Kips and Richard Wright and Paul. And so we will play those teams as well as Ron Brown this year. And we have planned to scrimmage Coolidge over there with Coach Kevin. And so we're excited. I mean, they had done some groundwork before I got there. A lot of people didn't realize that. But helmets were ordered, shoulder pads were ordered. I walk in the building, and a lot of things have been done. And the kids had actually been working out. And it's some great kids over there. A couple of the kids were kids we actually recruited at Carroll that were going to the middle school. So they decided to stay at the high school. And so, I'm looking forward to, getting this thing going.
All right, so we've mentioned Carroll now a couple of times here, and the day the news broke, like I got on the text message for you, for anybody who is familiar with myself and Coach Harris. Again, we go way back. Like this is my guy. We've done podcasts and interviews and everything else for years and years now. When I heard the news, I got to be honest, I was shocked. I was shocked because going back to some 7, 8 years ago, I interviewed you at Carroll, and you were not only the football coach there, not only the athletic director, but you're an alum. By all accounts, you bleed green and gold, bro. Like that school, that program, that community, I know that it means the world to you. How hard was it for you to walk away from the Carroll Lions?
I'll tell you, it was very hard, Chad. 3 generations of my family have gone to Carroll. My great uncle, my grandmother's youngest brother, played basketball there, graduated in the 60s. And then I came along in the 90s and in the late 80s and 90s. And then my son, Jordan, my youngest son, he graduated in 2020, the COVID year. So he didn't get a graduation or a prom or any of that, but he played football there with Anton Harrison. And so our family, we're Lions. We're going to always be Lions. But it was an opportunity that I felt like I couldn't refuse for so many reasons. As Darrell mentioned, you know, the school over in Southeast, it has had some challenges over the years. Especially this past year, losing 4 young men to tragic gun violence in our community. And so I felt like it was an opportunity for me to kind of touch some lives in a different way. Uh, I always say it's bigger than football, you know, and for me it is. I mean, you're going to have the Nick Harbors, the Anton Harrisons. You know, you're blessed if you can coach 1 or 2 of those guys in your career. I've known guys that they've never coached any of those type of kids, but it's so much bigger because we're helping impact these young people to become adults. You know, and at some point the air is gonna go out the ball anyway. I don't care what ball it is, you know, or the bat's gonna get too heavy, or the baton, you know, the track spike's gonna wear out. Something's gonna happen where you just can't do what you used to do as a young person. And so we have to help these young people, you know, establish adulthood, maturity, discipline, commitment, you know, to excellence, those type of things, and to help them think about, you know, life outside of school, life outside of their neighborhoods. So, you know, taking on this Digital Pioneers Academy challenge, you know, I welcomed it because I felt like this was a place, you know, God was calling me to. It didn't happen overnight. It's been a slow process. A lot of prayer, a lot of talking with the wife, a lot of talking with the CEO of the school, and you know, some things were changing, in my opinion, and so I felt like it was time for me to make a change.
Yeah, I mean, you speak to a couple of things that Darrell and I, in our research, that we had been looking at as well. So I know that Darrell has a follow up on that.
I do, and Coach, this is kind of you've alluded to it in your previous answer, but I want to expand on it because obviously this doesn't include just sports, just football. DC is quite frankly in a crisis right now. Our youth, mainly our young men, are struggling to survive, living without structure, unable to bring themselves to safety. And as you just said, the Digital Pioneers community lost 4 students to gun violence since last fall, including one just over a month ago. And that young man said that he had aspirations of playing football at DPA this coming fall. When you look at the landscape of the city and see how the youth in our city are in this crisis, how do you, as a leader and a community influence, focus on building more than just an athletic program or just a football team, but a program and a culture that emphasizes stability and development as a person?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. It's helping them to understand that there's life past 16.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
as a teenager myself, you know, DC was the murder capital of America when I was a teenager, 16, 17-year-old student at Carroll. And honestly, I felt like I was never going to see 21. Because I had just gone to that many funerals of young people that were dying as they were in high school or just graduating from high school. I had relatives. One relative, I just buried his mom a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at his tombstone. It said 1991. He was 17 years old.
My gosh.
You know, and so knowing that, I know what it feels like to feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. So we have to help these young people understand that there's light at the end of the tunnel. No matter what your circumstance is, if you stay focused, you know, and it's tough, it's hard because they have to go back to these communities, these neighborhoods every day, you know, and so, you know, you deprogram them, you know, you desensitize them when you have them, and then they got to go back into that hood and put that mask back on because they have to survive.
Sure.
So it's a lot of mental health, a lot of talking, a lot of mentoring, and like you say, because it's a sport, that's our window in. But we have to help them understand that there's so much more to it than just what we do as an athlete.
Yeah, Coach. I whenever I look at it for the Black community, I mean, especially in Washington D.C., but anywhere beyond that as well, no matter where it is that you are in America. I know that one of the biggest things, that the struggles, the challenges that we deal with for our young men, is that they don't always have young men who look like them, who come from places that they come from, who have achieved a high level of success, something that they can aspire to be, that they can touch and feel. I know that recently with Digital Pioneers that a few commanders came on over to the school. I believe Jason Wright as well. Jared Patterson in particular, a young man from PG County, one of my all-time favorites. He had built a bond with the young man that unfortunately was slain in the streets. I know that they made that connection. So how important is the relationship existing with the commanders to what it is that you all are attempting to do, not only on the field, but off the field as well? And how can they help to help mentor your student athletes?
It's tremendous, Chad, and they did a tremendous job, and they continue to do that. We're preparing to go to training camp on the 14th.
Wow.
As VIP guests, the whole team, the whole coaching staff, and those gentlemen, those commanders, those young men, they want to continuously be engaged and connected to these young people. You know, it was even some of the players that were not involved in the last event. They want to be a part. You know, they even told the person over the program, young lady said, well, why didn't you ask me? You know, so they understand. And like you say, when you come, not just DC, but I mean, you can go all over the country. You can go south, you can go west, you can go north, you know, and you're going to see a lot of this in our major cities. You're going to see these same issues. I have college teammates that are coaching in Houston, Texas. Same issue. You know, I coached in North Carolina in the Charlotte area for 10 years. Same issue. You know, so and it's impacting our community. You know, the statistics say that one of us is going to make it.
Sure.
One of us is going to go to jail, and one of us is going to be put in the ground.
Wow.
You know, that's those numbers gotta stop, because it's not only killing our young men, but it's also killing our family structure.
100. Why don't we see this more often, Coach? You know what I'm saying? Like you've been around the game for so long, brother. Like in a majority of the major cities where we see crime skyrocketing, albeit a Chicago, of course, always a New York City, et cetera, there are major sports programs around as well. Why don't more football players, basketball players come into the community and speak life to these youth the way that the Commanders are doing right now?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Some of them may be going back to their own home communities.
Sure.
You know, some of them may not realize that the community where they play is their home, and they may be from somewhere else, so they have two places that they kind of, you know, have to take care of. But as the word says, to whom much is given, much is required. And so that's a big piece of it. But then also, they may not always have the community liaisonship that builds and cultivates that relationship with the communities. I know the Commanders, even in past years, you know, the Ravens, they both, I'll use both of our local teams. I consider both of them local teams because the DMV, we cover both of those guys. Both of them have done a tremendous job in reaching out to the local high schools. Yeah. You know, in my opinion.
Look, I don't mean to get too far into the weeds here or begin creating too many hypotheticals, but do you believe now that under the new ownership for the Commanders that impression of Magic Johnson with the Commanders and all that he cares about, the black community in particular, do you believe that Magic Johnson effect will help there be even more of these Commanders reaching out and connecting with DCPG and even Montgomery County?
Absolutely. I mean, just check Magic's track record. I mean,
Sure.
from a business standpoint, where has he put his focus for his businesses? Where, I mean, you go to New York, Magic Johnson Theater is in the heart of Harlem.
Sure.
I mean, around the corner from the Apollo Theater. We all know that's the hood.
That's right.
125th Street. You know, that's the hood. So everywhere that he has thrived with his businesses, he's thrived, but he's also put them in our communities.
That's
And
right.
so I can only assume based on his track record, because you know, apple don't fall from his tree, and a zebra don't change his stripes. Magic is true to who he is, you know, and I, you know, I can only say that having him as a even a minority owner, his imprint is tremendous, and I'm glad that he's going to be a part of our city.
100%.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think a lot of people feel the same way that you do, Coach. I know I certainly do, not only for him being an owner for our major team in the DMV, but for his impact on the community as well. Something I want to ask you is about something that you made mention of almost a decade ago.
Mhm.
Before you took your head coaching position at Carroll, your alma mater, you talked about something your grandmother once told you. She said, if you feel like the job is for you, God will be with you.
Absolutely.
You just talked about this job needing talking to your wife, talking to the CEO, and a lot of prayer and thought went into it. And 8 years later, after you took that job at Carroll, after you revived that program, after you finished with a winning record, there are probably a lot of folks today, as Chad said at the start of the show, who publicly or privately wondered why, after years of success, you've made this jump from your alma mater, the school you love so much, to a school that in many ways is starting from scratch. And you are the one, as the AD, who's responsible for the success of its student athletes, of the players, of the players in the classroom. If Willa Mae Hart, your grandmother, were still here today, what would you tell her about why you're taking this job at Digital Pioneers?
Well, the first thing I would tell her is, you know, all jobs have a season,
Wow.
and that season can be lifetime, or that season can be a year. Uh, I felt like for me, I had reached a plateau, uh, and I also knew I needed to grow in other areas. 2017, I became the athletic director at Archbishop Carroll. I held that position for 2 years. Those first 3 months, I went out and got my registered athletic administrator certificate. And I will be pursuing my certified athletic administrator certificate through the NIAAA, which most athletic directors have. And so in doing that, I realized that it was more that I have to offer to an athletic program than just being an actual head coach. You know, this past year was year 28 as a head coach for me.
Man.
And so I believe if a man doesn't grow, he dies. So you have to continue to grow too. So I felt like this was an opportunity where I could grow personally, professionally, spiritually, and so that and I know she would understand that.
Yeah. Coach, I not only do I love you as a man, but I think that you are a tremendous motivator. I know how much you care about your kids, your student athletes. I know how much you love them. I know that you're a hell of a coach, and all of the above as well. We also know that when it comes to the game of football, a lot of times it takes some time. So when you go out there on the football field, especially in the first couple of years here, what's going to be the measure of success? How will you define success for your program beyond points scored, points allowed, and wins and losses?
I chuckle because there's so many things that I could count as W's. From the simplest thing is getting a kid to put a belt on.
There we go.
You know, pulling your pants up. Yes, coach, no coach. Yes, sir, no, sir. All those things are going to be wins for me because
Wait a minute, Coach. Why start there?
Well,
plain. Like they say in church, make it plain.
Okay, well, those things are gonna carry those young men so much further than they can even imagine right now. And so sometimes when you know better, you do better. So my obstacle is to help them understand how to do better.
I love it. I
And
love it.
so that's where I'm going to find the wins. Coming to class on time, doing your homework. Because if you do all those things that you don't want to do, the stuff that you do want to do, that's the easy part. But all those other things go with being able to play football, being eligible. Am I academically eligible? When a college coach comes through the door, do I know how to look him in his eye and say, yes, coach, no, coach, yes, sir, no, sir? Because, see, that's the other thing. These young men, they want to go to the next level and play. So I tell my players, you're always on stage. Somebody's always watching. So they have to understand how to perform.
I want to take a step back. Speaking of performances, I want to take a step back and talk about last season with the Carroll Lions there. It was an outstanding year for you. Again, from when we first met 8 years ago, the goal was to restore the roar. You all had restored the roar a couple of years before, but like you all were ferocious Lions last year. You finally got over that hump of knocking off Riken and winning the WCAC crown. I know that as much as graduating student athletes, as much as that WCAC, I know they're going undefeated and bringing home both trophies was something that in some regard was important to you all. How challenging was it for you all to not only come up short against Friendship, but to lose the lead late against Friendship? And to dive deeper, at the end of the game, you didn't call any timeouts. Talk to me about this.
Of course, we would have, the year previous, we went 13-1. We let that game get away from us. What I'll tell you about this coaching thing is you prepare, you over prepare, especially for championship games. And sometimes you just won't even know how the game is going to go. We were down. We beat Riken. We beat them in the playoffs. We beat them in the regular season. They didn't even make the championship game last year. We ended up playing PVI, who we had beat convincingly during the season, and then we had to play them in the championship. And that's the toughest thing about coaching high school kids is who's going to show up on game day.
Sure.
The year prior when we lost to Riken in the championship game, we dropped 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. That changed a game. You fumbling the ball. I mean, all kind of things. My very first year at Carroll, we played St. John's. We had them 6-3, and 2.5 minutes left, and we fumbled a snap on a punt, and they fell on the end zone, and we lost 10-6. So you just never know how it's going to go. And the thing with timeouts, honestly, the kids had checked out.
How'd you know that? How'd you know that?
When kids say on the sidelines, "Oh, well, we won the championship last week," it's like that was something different for me. That was something different, and that's why I say you never know. And it's tough as a kid. 14 games in a high school season. That's hard.
I want to make sure I frame this for anybody who didn't see that game, because I was on the call and obviously you were on the sidelines. This is the DCSAA championship game where in the fourth quarter you all are down by 1 score, and I believe you had the ball. Look, there wasn't much of a chance. I have to believe you had the ball inside the 10. It was a Hail Mary's chance, but in that regard, you all decided to let the clock run out. So you're saying that on those sidelines, these young men who had been through a hard season and who had won the WCAC, that for them in that moment, they had internally decided that they had accomplished their goal for the year.
And not all of them. I won't say all of them, but a majority of them did. You
Yeah.
know, and that's the one thing you can't do. If you're going to line it up and play, you're going to play. I don't care what it is. And you know, I love my guys, but a lot of times young people, they struggle with those moments. You know, those moments. You know, even when we played Roosevelt, you know, it was some folks that were like, "What we gonna do? What we gonna do?" You have to settle down, and the only way you can understand that is this: you have to go through it.
Sure.
It has to. You have to take some losses in it. You know, now a lot of those young men, I guarantee you, if they ever get in that situation and get in college, it'll be totally different.
That's right.
But if you never experience it, you don't know what it feels like.
Mm.
You know, and that's the tough part about sport. You know, it's like what was it, CBS Sports or one of those sports channels that used to say, you know, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. Those things are they're like love and hate. It's a thin line between them. Very thin line.
Wow. Wow. If we're going to, you know, to talk about that Carroll program, and Coach, this will be my last question for you. Darrell likes to end on a banger. If we're going to talk about that Carroll program, I believe that over the stretch of the time that you were there, again, you took that program back over, you nurtured it back to life, you grew it up big and strong. In many ways, it was like your baby, your child. As hard as it had to be to leave your child, I know that you had to feel good about leaving it in the hands of a young man who had been under your development and learning from you as well. What did it mean to you for Coach Quick to be the man to take over that program?
That's always a great thing when you're able to mentor. You know, like you said, the program I felt like was a baby that I cultivated. I felt like Quick was a little brother, almost like a son to me, you know, and to watch him grow. Quick came as a JV coach from the youth leagues. I had never coached high school, and you know, and everything I would ask him to do, he took to it. When we would talk in meetings, he understood. When he read the defensive playbook, he would come ask questions when others wouldn't. He would ask questions in the whole meeting when others wouldn't, and so his whole, you know, cultivation from going from that JV linebackers coach to being the JV defensive coordinator to being the linebackers coach for the varsity to being the defensive coordinator for the varsity to me naming him the assistant head coach of the whole team and him coaching the Cubs. You know, all of that. You know, I felt good about it. You know, when he asked me, when I made my decision to leave, I was asked, and I said yeah, and I told the administration that, and I told him he should interview for it. You know, of course, I wanted him to come with me, but he had to make a decision as well. And so, you know, I wish him the best. You know, all the best because I feel like I did play a major role in his growth as a coach and as a man, as a father. You know, I hope I did I was a good example for him of what that looks like, and I think he'll do well.
That's what's up.
Coach, this is also going to be my final question. I don't know if it's a banger, as Chad said it'll be, but it's still a question. It's still a relevant question. And I wanted to ask you what it's been like. It's only been a short period of time, but what it's been like for you at Digital Pioneers in terms of meeting the administration, meeting the staff, meeting some of the coaches who are going to be on your staff, meeting some of your future players, whether they're football players on your team or whether they're just players in the athletic department. What has it been like cultivating those relationships and getting to know everybody that you're going to be seeing and interacting with on a daily basis come this fall?
It's been awesome, quite honestly. Everybody's excited, you know, from the staff wanting football gear and clothes, and you know, the parents, the kids, you know, the kids have a group chat. I'm not in it, but they tell me after the first practice I was with them, the kids would texting each other, man, practice like that. To the guys that didn't come, y'all need to get to practice. We had good time in practice. So the kids are excited. The coaching staff that was in place and the coaches that I'm adding to the staff, they're excited. We're having some great meetings, some great dialogue. And let me just say, our CEO, Miss Michelle Ashton, I couldn't ask for a better leader. She has a heart. She has a heart for these kids, and that's what's, when we talk about what's needed in this city, that's what's needed. It used to be there, and I'm not saying it's not there anymore, but when you go back in the day, you ask some adults, they'll tell you about a Princess Whitfield at Hines Junior High School. They'll tell you about a Dr. Eva Russo at Dunbar High School. They'll tell you about an Arthur Linder at Cardoza High School. And those are the administrators. And they're going to definitely tell you about Bob Hedden or Coach Willie Stewart. So, you have these coaches and that names will ring out, forever, because they touch so many young people. And so she has a gift that she's touching these young people in a way, and she has a heart for them that, I even told her, I said, wow, you give them a whole lot,
Right.
but I'm glad she does, because the kids need it. They need to know that someone outside of their family, their blood relatives, genuinely care about their well-being, and not just a test score or passing a grade, but, becoming a productive citizen in society.
And it's not with her, it's not an act.
No.
It's with her, it's genuine. You can see it. Everything I've seen, everything I've read, it's all genuine because she genuinely cares about the school, about her students, and about everybody she works with.
Absolutely.
Coach, I thought that I was finished, but I want to double down on this entire conversation that we've had here. We've mentioned it a couple of times. 4 student athletes, 4 black young teens have lost their life from this charter school that is built and designed to be a beacon of hope and a place of education for our youth in Southeast Washington, D.C. Now we're bringing in this football program under the cloud of the things that have occurred in the last year. For you personally, in terms of your personal mission, how do you hope that your football program, and as an athletic director, that your athletics programs helps to stem the tide of some of this violence? And although we can never say it for certain, but to do the best in your ability to make sure that we don't read the headlines of another one of your young people shot dead in the streets.
Well, I just hope it gives them a safe place. It's a safe haven. That's what a lot of our young people need. They need a safe haven. Carroll was a safe haven for a lot of young people. We had a lot of Ward 7, Ward 8, kids from all over the city, all over the DMV, and they were facing some of these same issues. We had a young man, we lost him last summer. There was a Carroll student killed at the metro station, the Shaw station. So this is really something that our city has to take a look at. It's unfortunate that 4 of the young men were students at Digital Pioneers Academy, but it's the neighborhoods that they have to go back and live in.
Sure.
You look at Twitter a couple of weeks ago. The young lady, I believe, young lady was killed. She was pregnant. Young people on Minnesota Avenue in the middle of the day with ARs and assault pistols and rifles. They're just shooting in the middle of the day, like nothing's going on. This is a systemic problem that we have in our city, and it's going to take programs like what we want to do at Digital Pioneer, but it's going to take our city officials and the whole community to really get involved and really take this serious, because it's no reason why 12, 13, 14-year-old young people are walking around with assault rifles and things like that. We have to really take a big look at that in our city.
100%. Coach, again, albeit from the first time that we interviewed to every time thereafter, brother, you are You are more than a head football coach. You are an outstanding man, and the digital pioneers, they are blessed to have you, as were we here today, brother. Thank you very much.
Fellas, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Coach.
Ricardo Report, bruh.